Good morning, Mr. Sababi. Very much happy that you can join us at the 10th Africa FinTech Summit here in Lusaka, Zambia. You're joining us from Cairo. Thank you so much. We want to share some insight about PAPSS progress since it went live so that our audience here in Lusaka, Zambia, and also our virtual attendees can see how PAPSS is actually changing the African inter-Africa trade. We're very much happy to have Mike joining us as a keynote speaker last year. So we've heard how PAPSS has come to existence with the Africa Free Continental Free Trade Agreement, AFREXIM, and AU. So my first question for you will be, since PAPSS has gone live, what are the progresses? You started from central bank and then commercial bank, and I understand the future is fintech. Can you tell us a little bit what has been achieved over the last 2 years, for example?
Thank you very much, Zacharias, and thank you for inviting us always to this forum as PAPS. We view this as a very good collaboration and also as a platform where our participants and potential participants can listen to us and get to know where we are and what we're doing. Yes, we launched PAPS in last year in 2022, in January, on the January 13th. And at that time, we had West African central banks. So there are two ways here. PAPS endeavors to have a greater reach that is spreading across Africa and not only in countries, but also in regions, to have a presence in every region, and also to have a depth in meaning many participants in terms of commercial banks, because commercial banks that actually push transaction on behalf of economic agents. So where are we today? To date, on that, in addition to the West African Monetary Zone, which is a group of 6 countries: Ghana, Guinea-Conakry, the Gambia, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Ghana and Nigeria. We've added 4 more others. We have Djibouti, which was the first country to sign off after the WAMZ region. We have Zimbabwe, we have Zambia, and we also have Kenya and Rwanda as of last week. So we are now present in almost all regions in Africa, in West Africa, East Africa, and Southern Africa and Eastern Africa. So, and then the far northeast, which is Djibouti. So we're kind of slowly now spreading very well across regions and across countries. And also in terms of that deepening, having banks come on board. We have taken another approach now in terms of settlement. We have introduced the commercial bank settlement model, which is a model that where commercial banks play a bigger part, play the operations. They come and do the settlement on their own and also the settlement on behalf of their clients, or be it fintechs, who are the indirect participants, but the participants take a bigger role. And central banks remain at the regulator level only. So where are we with them? Where we've come with them, we have now a network of 81 commercial banks that have joined PAPS, and also 8 switches, 5 national switches and 3 private switches. So we see this as a growing in terms of spread and also growing in terms of depth. And this is what's going to spur growth in terms of transactions. And lastly, I might mention that we have memorandums of understanding with 5 African group banks. This is Access Bank, EcoBank, KCB in Eastern Africa, Standard Bank in Southern Africa, and UBA in the West. So these 5 are going to help the spread of and deepening of PAPS in their various markets. And together they hold more than 40% of the banks across Africa. So this is where we are to date, and this is how we've moved in the last 2 years.
Fantastic. It's a great achievement. Thank you so much. You mentioned Zambia is now a member of PAPSS, and we are having this summit here in Lusaka. And we have audience here in this room, both in person and virtually, including regulators, bank presidents, bank executives, fintech, and also students. Can you briefly tell us what does Zambia's membership of PAPSS means for Zambia and Zambians? What benefit will they get?
Thank you very much, Zacharias, for that, because I think that's very important to set the tone and to speak to the Zambian people what PAPSS means to them and to their economy. Zambia is one of the countries that are signatories and have ratified the instruments for the ACFTA. That given, they've opened the market to the whole of Africa. So the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System comes in to improve efficiencies in terms of the African payment landscape, which means Zambia can now trade through payment with other African countries. Now that said, we have structures in the general in the economy how payments improve or affect economic development. The faster the payment, the faster the investment and consumption will be, and this ultimately ends up in growing the GDP of the country. And in many countries in Africa, we have informal trade. So these informal trades impede two things. One, they not recorded, and therefore the statistics in terms of trade are skewed, but also they exclude the participants from the financial sector. So the Zambian public or the Zambian economic sector will be included. PAPSS will support that. PAPSS will help that. Inefficient payments have been one of the impediments to intra-African trade. So PAPSS comes in to see how to improve efficiencies in the payments landscape and therefore be able to ultimately lead to intra-African trade or people trading across each other. Now, lastly, PAPSS comes with the element of using local currencies. Now, this also ultimately will support and apart from formalizing the informal sector, will also support the trading and the sending of remittances across borders quite easily in local currencies. So let me take a step back and look at the challenges of cross-border payment systems all over the world, not only in Africa, but major in Africa. And these have also been identified by the G20. This is the cost, speed, access, and transparency. Now, PAPSS comes in to address these four in a kind of as a one-stop point. One, PAPSS offers access to all central banks, uh, commercial banks, fintechs alike. But we do this in a tiered manner to be able to comply with the prudential norms that have been set up that are set by regulators. Because not all fintechs can come on board directed to PAPSS. Therefore, we encourage them to go through commercial banks. However, we are able to see which fintech is sending transactions to the other across the borders. And the banks that are properly regulated and well regulated by the central banks or monetary authorities in various countries can come and connect directly, and it will give access to central banks to be able to look at the system, oversee the system, see the transaction, and be able to take any measures that may not that they see will either foster financial stability or come up with measures that can stop anything that can hinder the stability of their financial sectors. So this is how the Zambian people and Zambia itself can benefit from it. So we believe that this will be a major milestone and a good stepping stone for Zambia to trade across Africa, but also to be able to get financial inclusion faster.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Moscow. So Kenya signed as a member of PAPSS and joined PAPSS last month. It was a move that was applauded by the IMF, given the forex distress the country is in. So, can you tell us what PAPSS means for Kenya, Kenyans, and other countries that have foreign currency shortage and distress, so to speak?
Yeah, first of all, let me applaud the IMF for having recognized that Kenya's entry or any country's entry into PAPSS is a good step towards the right direction. I must also mention that the East African region has quite, in the last 1 month, been very active. We've had Kenya joining, we've had Rwanda joining, and several others also. We're having very good discussions with them. So I must applaud the IMF for recognizing that, and also for Rwanda and Kenya for having come on board quite quickly. Now, similarly, Kenyan citizens or Kenyan economy is going to benefit in the same way as the Zambian economy. Most of the structures of the economies in Africa are basically the same. we have large parts of informal sector. We'll probably mention a couple of them. You have between, say, Rwanda and Tanzania, you have about $250 million moving informally between Rwanda and Congo, the same. Between Benin and Nigeria, you have a huge market which is informal. So I'm sure between Kenya and Somalia there is, between Kenya and Uganda there is. So this is, perhaps comes into support economies to want to modernize, but also to be able to formalize and have proper statistics and be able to guide economic growth, and also know where the resources in the economy can be put. Maybe also to look at the business side of the story. The faster payments are made because PAPSS comes in to offer instant payment. This affects the velocity of money. When you trade, when you sell something, you want money now, not tomorrow, not today, not even the next minute. You just want it immediately. So this is going to help the economic agents in terms of quicker monetary or quicker value. They will gain value from their businesses much faster. So then, and the other is that because Kenya trades a lot with many countries, especially Egypt, where they sell coffee, tea and coffee, and also the Far East. We, PAPSS and Buna, which is a system between the Arab world and Africa, we are now interconnecting. So that means Kenya, Zambia, and the others that are connected to PAPSS are going to have access to the Middle East. And two, we are also putting in place, they're going to have access to the rest of Africa very easily, because Egypt and the rest are also coming on board, and they're also part of Buna. So it's the interplay between these two systems, Buna and PAPSS, is going to support the Kenyan economy very, very much. And I believe that also the fact that we are using local currencies will support Kenya in terms of the reserves management, in terms of the preservation of the reserves of the central bank.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So you started with central banks. Now you have strong commercial banks in play. We are here at the Africa FinTech Summit, and we have a lot of fintechs who will be operating or want to operate on cross-border transactions in a greater scale. So what opportunities are there for fintechs and fintech startups to work with PAPSS on the layer of infrastructure you build now and in the future?
I mentioned this before that PAPSS has got a tiered approach. Tiered approach meaning that we began with central banks, and we have this central bank settlement model, and where we require central banks to bring their reserves and be able to settle. We have included another model where we have commercial banks coming to play a bigger role in operations. Now, fintechs can be defined as simple SMEs on the street doing some kind of accounting systems and stuff like that. That's a fintech as well. But fintechs in this kind of regard is a fintech that is moving value between one individual, one firm to the other. And how do we approach them? Fintechs are not regulated per se by monetary authorities. And PAPSS is a financial market infrastructure that is systemically important in Africa. So by that means we respect the prudential norms. So we have we are working on a plan on how to categorize fintechs. We have discussions with large fintechs and small fintechs now. Beyond a certain strength, between a certain size of a fintech, we require them to go through commercial banks. The others we can easily be able to handle directly. But this is a process we're still doing. There are about 700 commercial banks in Africa. We've done 81. So we want to have a critical mass of these commercial banks and be able to now touch the fintechs. However, we are moving in tandem to also discuss with the large fintechs in Africa. Out of the 41 central banks, we now have 11. So we have 30 more to go. So you can see that we have a long way to go in terms of getting the bigger, the tier, the central bank tier and the commercial bank tier. And the fintech tier will also come on board. But we are in deep discussion with the large fintechs to be able to work with them as well directly, to see how we can serve them quickly.
Thank you so much, Moscow. And thank you so much for carving out time from your busy schedule in Cairo and joining us for the 10th Africa FinTech Summit here in Lusaka. And we look forward to hearing more of PAPSS impact in Africa at our next FinTech Summit in 2024. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zacharias, and thank you. And it has been a pleasure seeing you again.